One of the biggest fears of gravitating this way is that of cholesterol. I don't know if you want to get into cholesterol, but we can get into that to dispel any of the other myths. But I'll bounce it back to you, and we can go from there.
I think this is the perfect moment to talk a little bit more about cholesterol.
Perfect. So cholesterol been incredibly misunderstood, and it comes from, we're told that cholesterol leads to cardiovascular disease. Cholesterol doesn't lead to cardiovascular disease. Um, in simple terms, I mean, cholesterol is something that is created naturally in the body. And if we were to consume less of those factors that allow us to make cholesterol in our diet, the body makes more. So this is how essential the cholesterol is. Now, we're told that cholesterol clogs the arterial wall and leads to cardiovascular disease. Now, this came from research in the 1950s done by a scientist called Ancel Keys, who had a theory that saturated fat intake led to cardiovascular disease. And he released a study called the 7-country study, which was taken on board by the Senate McGovern and the American Heart Association, and then the rest of the world. And this is what we still believe to this day. So over 70 years later. But this has been disproven many, many times. And the reason for this is that, and we now know, and this is fact, so I don't think it's going to be, wrong to say during the show, but we know that Ancel Keys and scientists involved were bribed to falsify that research by the Sugar Association. So they were bribed to remove certain countries. So the original study contained 22 countries, I believe it was. Or was it 21? 21 or 22? I can never remember.
22.
22. So, 14 of these countries or 15 of these countries were removed because they showed no correlation. And in fact, many of the countries that removed actually showed the opposite. They actually showed that it conferred a benefit to have higher cholesterol. But because it didn't tie into their hypothesis, of the Sugar Association, they removed these. And this is where the whole hypothesis of cholesterol came from. There's a study published on the BMJ, which covers, I think it's over 93,000 participants. No, it's not. It's 63,000, over 63,000 participants. And I can send you the reference to this, and I'm sure you're already familiar with this study. 63,000 participants, and it showed an inverse association between high LDL and all-cause mortality, representing 92% of the participants. In other words, the higher your LDL, the lower your risk of death. And studies like this have been echoed across the board in regards to, there was one done, the Minnesota coronary artery experiment, which Ancel Keys was also involved in. This was carried out in the 1970s, I believe, but only came to fruition in recent times because the results didn't show what the scientists wanted. So that information was hidden. And there's another one done in Australia and lots of other studies that have been done. And these are double-blind randomized controlled trials which show that saturated fat intake was correlated with increase in longevity, increase in lifespan. So when we look at cholesterol, and I'll keep this as simple as we can, LDL, which we're told is bad cholesterol, this will leave the liver and it will travel through the body, dropping off lipid cargo in order to heal and repair your body. So this is what LDL does. Yet we're told that it's the bad cholesterol. But dropping off cargo to heal and repair your body doesn't sound very sinister to me. So it does that, and then it goes back to the liver when it drops off this cargo, it shrinks in size, and then it goes back to the liver. To allow entry to the liver, every one of these particles has a receptor called an ApoB100 receptor. And this receptor is what allows access to the liver. So without this receptor site, the liver doesn't allow it access. So with this receptor, it goes into the liver, it fills back up, if you like, or it's regenerated into full cholesterol, full LDL particle, and then it's shipped back out to perform its journey again and drop off this lipid cargo. Now, what happens is if we consume excessive amounts of sugar, this causes glycation. So this causes the ApoB100 receptor to become glycated. If we consume excessive amounts of vegetable oils, it causes oxidation. So this damages this ApoB100 receptor. It causes glycation and oxidation. So now when this particle goes back to the body, back to the liver, this receptor is no longer recognized. So the liver doesn't allow it access. So it continues to travel through the body, trying to perform its original duty, which is to heal and repair the body. So it will travel into the subendothelial space where there's damage in order to try to heal and repair the body. But it's got nothing to drop off because it hasn't been back to the liver. Within within this space, there are cells called macrophages, and these macrophages have receptors, it's called a scavenger receptor. And this scavenger receptor recognizes this damaged ApoB100 receptor, and it allows it access, and it engulfs this particle and every other particle, and it crams them all in until this macrophage grows into a form cell. And it's this form cell that's the start of an atherosclerotic plaque. So cholesterol can be found in there, but it's damaged cholesterol. It's not healthy cholesterol. So if the particle is healthy, i.e. non-glycated and non-oxidized, it doesn't get engulfed by this macrophage, and then the form cell never grows. And there, we do not lead to this to atherosclerosis and cardiovascular disease. So how do we prevent this from happening? Well, we don't consume excess amounts of glucose, and we don't consume excess amounts of oxidized seed oils. So LDL is not the enemy. Now, the big concern when we gravitate into a low-carb ketogenic lifestyle is that it will increase our cholesterol. But again, this isn't the problem. But what we see is when we see an increase in cholesterol, we don't actually see an increase. We see a return back to a natural physiological level because we've had a lifetime of consuming these phytosterols, which are plant cholesterols. They look so close to human cholesterol that the body produces less human cholesterol. So this is why the number comes down, because it appears that we have enough within the body, but they don't act the same way as human cholesterol. For example, when exposed to UVB rays, and we need cholesterol to synthesize vitamin D to protect us from the skin and act as a sunscreen. This is why we burn, because we don't have enough human cholesterol within the skin to synthesize the vitamin D, because these plant sterols are not human cholesterol. There's a condition called cytosterolemia. Cytosterolemia is a genetic inherited condition in which the body cannot excrete these phytosterols to a good enough capacity. And what happens in this case is, and if you Google cytosterolemia, S-I-T-O, cyto, and then sterolemia, as you say it, you will see that this condition is a result of the body being unable to excrete these phytosterols, these plant sterols, basically. And it leads to a massive increase in cardiovascular disease, early onset cardiovascular disease, which should tell you everything that you need to know. The body loses its ability to excrete this toxin. So this is what these phytosterols are. This is what these vegetable oils are, these plant sterols. They're toxins to the body. So now we've removed those. Our body goes back to producing real human cholesterol. So this is why we may sometimes see an elevation. But all of that is a natural return to our physiological level, which is healthy. Cholesterol is not the enemy. Cholesterol does not clog your arteries. And what happens is we can test this. So, we can, the three, in fact, there's 4 factors that I'll give you, the 4 parameters that we can use for testing. So if we look at triglycerides, we want our triglycerides to be as low as we can. We don't want elevated triglycerides. We want our HDL to be as high as we can. But if our LDL is high, that isn't a problem as long as our triglycerides are low and our HDL is high, because it's this triglyceride to HDL ratio that is very important. And that is one of the biggest markers. The lower, the better. Below 1.5 is good. Below 1 is really good. If you can get below 0.5, then absolutely fantastic. And what this is an indicator of is whether your LDL is what's called pattern A or pattern B. Pattern B is more oxidized and more glycated. So if the lower this ratio, the less glycated and oxidized your LDL is, and the more predominant that your pattern A is. And we want this pattern A. And it's a super simple test. There is another test that we can implement as well, and it's called apoprotein A. So if we can test for that, that becomes an indicator of pattern B. So it is a test that we can apolipoprotein A. We can test for this, and this is an indicator of pattern B LDL, which is the glycated and oxidized. But it's a super simple test that we can do without that apolipo as a test alone thing. If we have the triglycerides, the HDL and the LDL, we can perform this, and we can run it through that little formula that I've just said to see, what our pattern, our cholesterol is. But cholesterol is essential for life. Cholesterol does not cause cardiovascular disease.
That was perfect. One of the best explanations on cholesterol that I've heard.